Director Bob Rafelson ushered in a new age of filmmaking with a slightly unknown film called 5 Easy Pieces. It stars Jack Nicholson in his first starring role in a wide-release picture.
Everything I got showing me I don't want the chains going around and all this. It's all right, but I prefer card playing. Where is it? What the hell's going on in the middle of this?
This came out after the breakout success of Easy Rider. BBS Productions, founded by Bob Rafelson and Bert Schneider, produced these two pictures. Cinema in America was undertaking a revolutionary change, being inspired by European filmmakers in France, Czechoslovakia, Britain, and Germany. Funnily enough, a lot of these European filmmakers were inspired by American filmmakers of the decades before. 5 Easy Pieces tells the story of Bob, who spends his life working manual labor in the oil fields with a waitress girlfriend who he's not all too considerate or faithful to. It isn't until later that we find out where Bobby came from. He came from a wealthy class of talented musicians, and he himself is a very talented musician. He goes off to visit his father, who's had a stroke. It's a very character-driven journey, one that doesn't present anything in relative answers. Bob Rafelson is the director of this film. He also had a story writing credit. Bob made waves with his Monkees movie called Head the year prior to 5 Pieces, in which you can spot Jack in a tiny role. He went on to work with Jack 4 more times in the years to come. This is written by Carol Eastman. The cinematography is by Laszlo Kovacs. Besides Nicholson, it stars Karen Black, a frequent BBS collaborator, and Susan Ansbach. There are a lot of immediate descriptions to try and boil this film down. It's a road trip film, it's a melodrama, it's a character piece. It's at times crass and abrasive. It's rude, it's misogynistic. It's a portrait of 1970s America is a phrase that gets thrown around.
Why don't you flash your light so we can see what else you got for Christmas?
I'm not going to act like I have a smarter way to describe this film. Those are great ways to describe it. I just avoid coming up with a good review by saying acclaimed films like 5 Easy Pieces are hard to describe.
Okay. See you later.
The reason the 1970s is such a redefining era of cinema and in the larger picture, the US and the world, was because of the decades prior. Just talking about film here, the 1960s were all about throwing away the decade prior. A lot of decades like to get rid of the decades prior. The 1950s, the studios were still juggernauts. The golden age of Hollywood was slowly being torn down. Somewhere in the 1930s or the 1920s, I can't remember, somewhere in this golden age of Hollywood, there was this star system, where studios grabbed young kids and raised them and trained them to become movie stars. Granted, whether there were better stars outside the system, it still gave us people like Cary Grant and Joan Crawford. But a new form of acting was sprouting in Hollywood in the 1950s, that of the method. This was started by Russian Konstantin Stanislavski, and then came overseas to people like Stella Adler and Elia Kazan, who then brought out people like Marlon Brando, James Dean, and Elizabeth Taylor, just to name a few. These actors were not about showing emotion. They were about feeling it, man. They were about feeling emotion, not showing it, man. Yeah, so there were new types of films that were coming out in this time period, those that were more about unveiling the truth of human emotion. Films before this have their own right to be great, but sometimes they unabashedly push aside authenticity for showmanship and happy endings. This mostly applies to the Hollywood system here. Other countries were a little ahead of their time, like French filmmaker Jean Renoir. I don't know how to say a French name, I'd say the 1960s naturally threw away the decade before, as they were already progressing to become more honest storytellers. Vietnam, civil unrest, government distrust played a huge factor into these movements. So the 60s paved the way for the best decade in cinema. The 2020s, just kidding. Of course, I mean the 70s. Jack Nicholson is a great example of a method actor. Here he is in an interview talking about the method.
And you'd be amazed at how many actors look at their watch to see what time it is, and they don't see what time it is. Okay. Mine says 2:17 now.
Moi, j'ai 2h17.
Oh, I never would've.
Say goodbye to the old ones. It's such a reflection on many people during the 70s, but I think mostly the men from this era. Some argue the women are treated horribly in this film, and yes, they do. The women are mostly there to cause the male characters stress because they actually have feelings and desires, and the men just use them for sex. That's a huge turnoff, yes, but it's not the film's fault for commenting on that. Rolfeson and Nicholson knew what they were saying. They were showing us terrible things that Bob does. It causes us to step back and have a moment of self-reflection, to realize maybe we aren't that far from that, and hopefully it can change for the better. That's what great art does. It tells the truth so we can be better people. Nicholson's character isn't all that bad. It's just that audiences go into it seeing blatant morally bad decisions and can easily judge them for that. It's much harder to judge yourself. Bring everyone up to speed. The cinema of the 1970s brought us to where we are now in the year of the cat, 2020. I'm redoing 2020, even though it is very much 2021. There are a number of diverse and unique voices out there. The amount of content, I hate that word, but content is the best blanket word to describe modern society's art. The amount of content out there is literally limitless to a person nowadays. So, I suppose I didn't go much into the film 5 Easy Pieces, but if you are a fan of Nicholson, this is a perfect role for him. He has such a very calm and subdued role, but still his grimy and vile side shows up in spurts of rage, and it is a beautiful and raw performance, one for the ages. His final words to his father moved me just so much.
I'm trying to imagine your half of this conversation. My feeling is, I don't know, that if you could talk, we wouldn't be talking. It's pretty much the way that it got to be before I left. Are you all right? I don't know what to say.
So if you enjoy cinema of the 1970s and haven't seen this, I urge you to check it out. If you like road trip films, check this out. If you like Bob Rolfeson, check it out. I mean, yeah. If you like movies, check it out. If you're watching this video and you haven't seen it, check it out. I ordered the Criterion Blu-ray and I haven't seen it on any streaming services, so I guess that's for everyone to figure out where you can find it. I don't know what to tell you. So if any of these scenes that you saw looked interesting, I hope that was enough to get you to see it. I didn't know much of anything going into it, so I was very open to the experience of this picture, and I encourage everyone to do the same. Thanks for watching my video review. Leave a like and a comment if you enjoy 5 Easy Pieces as well, or other films like this. I think I found a niche of videos I like to do. Films that I adore but aren't widely known. My first video essay was on Meet Joe Black, and I hadn't met a single person who'd seen that film before, but I was blown away by the amount of love people have for it. Anyway, I gotta go. So, this has been Andrew. See ya.
A lot of fact, a lot of juice, a lot of jokes, and